So we all know that Netflix documentaries can be very hit and miss. Sometimes they're good, sometimes not so good. So we have a new one called Don't Pick Up the Phone. So this just came out yesterday on Netflix and it's a 3-episode documentary series. It goes for just under 3 hours, probably more like 2.5 hours all up. And basically it's about this thing that happened in America in these small towns where there was this prank caller calling out fast food places like McDonald's and Wendy's. I'm sorry, we don't have that in Australia, so I'm not used to saying it. So all those fast food places and pretending to be a police officer and asking the manager to strip search the employees, the young female employees. He would use the lie that he'd lie and say that they stole money from somebody in the restaurant and ask the managers to perform a strip search and do horrible things to the women. And just about everybody actually went through with it and did it and believed him. And the documentary is just showing how widespread this was and how ridiculous it was that nobody thought to question his authority, which is sort of the main takeaway, I guess, for me from this documentary, is how gullible people can be. So it's actually really interesting because there's this episode of SVU, so Law and Order Special Victims Unit, that was based on this case that I've always thought was one of the best episodes. So it stars Robin Williams, who plays the role of the guy who makes the phone calls, and basically the episode portrays him as this guy who's telling everybody to question authority, and he's sort of like an anti-hero. He's, he does horrible things, but he does it for a good cause. And you can relate to him to a certain degree despite the horrible things he does in the episode. But in real life, I think this guy was just a pervert. He just got off on power. But there's also a movie, I can't remember what the movie was called. I'll put up a picture, but that was based on that as well. The movie was very hard to watch at times, just like this documentary. It is not an easy watch, but still, it's really interesting. And I think it's horrible, but it really does raise a point that as a society, we don't really question people enough. So one thing that they did is showed real life footage of the actual crimes, and obviously when the victims were naked, it was blurred out, but still it made me think, I hope that they actually asked for permission before they did it. Like, I don't know the law, which I guess is the whole point of this documentary, that not enough people know the actual law and procedures and what they can and can't do. But yeah, I'm not sure if they can show that footage even if it's blurred out without the victim's consent, because you could see the acts happening to a degree and it's like, whoa, this is intense. It just feels really, really wrong that they did that if they didn't actually have permission, but who knows. Anyway, so we see the manager actually going as far as to making the victim perform sex acts on him because the voice on the phone told him so. And then he goes and tries to, like, some of the managers try to play the victim and say that they were victims as well, and it just comes off as really fake. Like, no, you don't do those sort of things because a voice on the phone told you so. You're doing it because you want to take advantage of that situation and have an excuse to do so. And it just came off as pretty inauthentic. Like, well, it's a Netflix documentary, so I can't really expect much, but still, I feel like there was no real accountability taken by the managers that had done those things. And yeah, it was interesting because they had this psychologist come on, and I thought, okay, he's going to start talking like, in Criminal Minds, if anyone has seen that show, how they start like analyzing the serial killers, the unsub, I think that's what they call them. Well, this guy obviously didn't kill anybody, but still, like, I thought that's what we were going to get, a breakdown of his psychology, why he does what he does. But instead, the psychologist started talking about all these other things that weren't really related to the case, and I feel like the documentary really lost its way in certain parts, and it really could have just tightened itself up to 2 episodes and really focused on what needed to be focused on. And at the end, one thing I thought was really interesting was how they were talking about how McDonald's and probably some of the other fast food restaurants actually knew what was happening to the employees. They had had it happen not just once or twice, but multiple times, and nothing was done. Nobody was warned about it. And then the victims tried to sue McDonald's and they made her seem like she was crazy. Thankfully, in the end, she won and she got $6 million. But still, it goes to show like just how nefarious these huge fast food giants actually are. And unfortunately, the documentary didn't really have any closure at the end, because the guy that they end up arresting didn't get arrested. Like, he didn't actually go to jail. There wasn't enough evidence, and it all just felt very inconclusive. So it's really up in the air as to what really happened. But the main takeaway, I think, was just the lengths that these huge corporations will go to. Like, it just was really eye-opening. Well, not that I didn't already know that, you know, they're not angels by any means, but still, it was really sad to see. And I've got to say, I'm not going to be buying my morning coffee at McDonald's anymore. Well, that's what I say. I'll probably end up caving and doing it anyway, because here in Australia, it's like the only place that you can go with a drive-through to get a coffee. So yeah, now I feel guilty. Anyway, so that was Don't Pick Up the Phone, and honestly, it just really wasn't that great. It was a really promising documentary. It had a very good storyline, something that I was already interested in hearing more about, but it just failed to deliver. I felt like they needed to focus more on some of the lead investigators and less on the managers who were victims. And yeah, it just didn't really seem like they knew where they were headed before they made this. It really felt like they were just sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel to try to find people to talk about what happened. But it still is pretty interesting. So if you have nothing else to do, I would still say give it a watch. And definitely see the Law and Order episode if any of you are SVU fans. Robin Williams just was so good in that. So anyway, I would give it a 5 out of 10. So let me know what you thought in the comments below if you saw it. And please like, subscribe, all of that. It really helps me out. Thanks, guys.